It's February already. Tell me how to catch up then. Hello, welcome to Model Kit Stuff. For those of you who don't know, my name is Jason and this is the catch-up. So if you've not caught a catch-up video before, then what we do is at the start of each month we have a bit of a chat about what we were doing in the month that's just gone, what we're working on, what's coming up in the future, some plans and various other bits and pieces pop in. It's a little bit of a chat, and who knows what's going to be in there. Quite often when I start the video, I'm not even sure what the content's going to be until I've finished it. Anyway, here we are. January is an old, long month, and so we've got plenty to talk about. This is what I've been working on in January. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute or two, and I've got some really exciting stuff coming up. So without further ado, let's think about what went on in January. Right, before we get going, thank you. Thank you to each and every one of you, not just for watching this video, but for subscribing, for joining me on my journey. Model Kit Stuff as a channel has a journey, and that journey reflects what I'm doing in my modelling hobby. I try and make it interesting and informative, but essentially it's me building, working my way through my stash. So I get to share my joy with you guys. So all good. So a big thank you to my subscribers. You make the channel what it is. You contribute in so many ways. You're 5,000 subscribers. It's a massive achievement. I never expected it. I've said it before. I'll say it again. Never expected it. Didn't know where it was going to go, but didn't expect it to do much. The channel's grown, and it's grown partly because of people mentioning me, but and however you've come to me and whatever it is that I do that holds your interest, whether it's the aircraft, whether it's the first impressions, whether it's doing tanks, whatever it is, I'm grateful that you come along for the journey. Thank you very, very much. Each and every one of you is a superstar in my book, and I look forward to doing more stuff and talking to you in the future. So we started off January, the year 2023, with a Meet the Creator video, LJ Scale Models, a really new channel. When it went out, it was just touching 30 subscribers. I'm very proud to say that we managed to just over double his subscriber count from that video. So a big thank you to those of you who subscribed. Obviously, if you subscribe and don't hit the bell, that really helps him get going. You don't necessarily have to see the notifications. I know that he's planning a Lancaster build, a 3, but I'm not sure it's a Mark 3, but I'm not sure it's the special. So he's one of several people that are planning a Lancaster build this year, and I'm one of them. With the 80th anniversary of the Dam Busters, I'm doing the Dam Busters version, which in many ways is not as nice from the point of view of a Lancaster, because it's not got all the turrets and stuff, but we do have the nice Barnes Wallis bouncing bomb to sling under it. So I'm looking forward to that. So that's one of the things that's coming up. So a big thank you to everyone who subscribed or checked out LJ Scale Models. If you didn't get round to it, if you missed the video, then all of my Meet the Creator videos are in a play stream now. So go and have a look at those. And go and check him out. So yeah, he's a lovely guy. He's just finding his feet, deciding what works for him and what doesn't. His videos are really short and punchy. So yeah, do that. We do have another Meet the Creator video. We've gone to the other end of the spectrum. We've gone from startup to well established. Lots of people already follow the next creator. So that will be out, I think it's the 6th of February, the first full Monday video slot of February. So look out for that. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but many of you will recognise him when he comes on. Yeah, and it was a really good video to pull together, actually. Had a lot of fun. And though you'll recognise him, a lot of you won't have seen his work before, so that's really interesting. So overall, the Meet the Creators videos have been reasonably successful. Everyone that has done one for me has managed to expose themselves to a few more subscribers. What I'd say is I've got 2 more that I know that I've got in the bag, and then I'm out. So don't be afraid. If you think that you'd like to have your channel featured on my channel, then what I'll tell you is we'll definitely do it. All you need to do is drop me an email at modelkitstuff@gmail.com, and I will send you an email which gives you the questions to answer, some brief instructions on how to get the video and the images we need at the end of your work back to me, and it's as simple as that. You record your answers, and then you send them back to me, and I edit it all together for you. We put it up on my channel. Job's done. So I am looking for more people to get involved in Meet the Creator. So if you've got a channel, whether it's large or small, drop me an email and we can sort that out. Hopefully we'll get a few more. I plan to do one a month. Sort of the first Monday of the month would be Meet the Creator. But I've got February done. I've got March done. I've possibly got April covered. And then I'm stuffed. So help me out and I'll help you out. That's how Meet the Creator works. My next video after that was a build update, and I just wanted to talk about those a little bit. So the build update was on the Tiger build, and this is something we started doing right at the back end of last year, the build updates. And it gives you a glimpse into what's been done and where I'm up to and so on. I might build on the build updates a little bit. The advantage of doing the little build updates is that I tend to get quite a few comments on them, whereas the actual full build diaries, because they're premieres, I get less comments on them because a lot of the people that ordinarily would comment on my videos tend to be on it anyway, on it live, and because we've had a chat and they've watched the video amongst friends and other modelers, they don't then go and chat in the video. So I get less comments initially, first week or so, when the build video goes out than I do on the little updates. So the updates are quite handy in terms of the channel's algorithm. But also it gives you a little insight into where I am as opposed to the builds, which are usually a little bit behind where I'm up to. So right now, when you see the next build come out, it won't be quite as far advanced as that, or it might catch up with where we are right now. So the little build updates are quite handy, and I'm probably going to try and do one every week. I've not quite managed that yet, and I've not got into the full swing of them. And of course, there needs to be something to talk about. And some weeks I get next to nothing done, so there's not much to say. But what I might do is I might just mix it up a little bit and do a build update or a bench update. I've never done a bench update before, and I know some channels do, and it might just be an opportunity to say, this is how the week's gone, this is what I've focused on, what's gone well, what's not gone well, you know, a brief 5-minute video, just touch base with people. So I don't know whether people would be interested in a quick bench update or not, but it might be a good way of keeping in touch with you guys through the month, because as I've previously said, the live streams just take up too much time. But hold on to that thought, we will be talking live streams again later on. Our first impressions video of 2023 was the 172 scale ME262 with the night fighting option. And we'd framed that video in a particular way. It is one of the most expensive 172 fighters, and I was intrigued to know why. And actually, when you go through it, it's not especially detailed. If you think about other 172 aircraft we've looked at, like some of the small German bombers, the Flying Pencil, you get a lot more in the kit for a similar cost. One of the things obviously was the decals. There was that extra little option in there, and we know that often the decals are the most expensive part in the box. So whether it is a combination of that and a slightly higher part count than a Hurricane or a Spitfire, I don't know, but it is quite a pricey model, but it got a lot of love. People were definitely enjoying that, and it is a nice model, so I'm looking forward to building that at some point. And actually, my most popular video of the month, which was also interesting. Okay, then we did the Christmas build. And actually, it went out on a Friday. I did try and pre-warn people. But on the Saturday, me and my good lady decided we were going to go out for something to eat. We'd had a busy Christmas period. I do all the cooking, so there'd been a lot for me to do, and we felt like we just needed a night off, so that's what we decided to do. And that got me thinking as to whether Friday night might be a better night for my live streams anyway. Originally, when I started doing the premieres with the live chat, I deliberately did them on a Saturday to avoid the fact that there's quite a few out on a Friday night, and have advised other channels that have been thinking about doing premieres and talking to me about it that Friday's probably a night to avoid because there's so much on. There is, and there was a channel that I used to watch. I don't watch so much now just because of time. And it depends on what they're building. That used to start at 8 o'clock on a Saturday and end at 9 o'clock. So I timed my video to go out after that. But subsequently, what's happened is that person no longer shows their video on a Saturday, and I'm probably less bothered about us clashing anyway. And another channel that I sort of dip in and out of is putting a video up every night, doing a live stream every night, and there's no way you can get around that. And they said to me, we have to do it sometime, and whenever we do it, we tread on someone's toes, and they're overlapping a little bit on my Saturday. And unfortunately, I have seen a drop off of views on a Saturday, and I suspect it's because of this channel that runs every night. So I totally agree with them. They need to decide what works for them and their channel. But I'm wondering about moving it to Friday because it gives me a little bit more flexibility with what we're doing with the family, to be honest. And if people don't get to see it live, they then get the opportunity to watch it, and I might get a few more comments. So I think as we go through February, we're going to try running them on a Friday. So the full builds will move to a Friday night. We'll see how it goes. I'm not saying it's a permanent arrangement, but we're going to see how it goes. Do them on a Friday and see how that settles down with views and so on and so forth. It may be that I've got it all wrong and Friday's going to make the videos a bit more popular because people are busy on a Saturday. I don't know. But yeah, that's the plan. We'll run them on a Friday. We'll give it a trial for a month or so and see what happens. So expect to see my notifications pop up on a Friday rather than a Saturday. So the actual build that we first put up was the Christmas build, which I know it was after Christmas, but it's the build I did over the Christmas period. Because it's so noisy and so busy over the Christmas holiday, I tend to film without sound. So the year before, I'd done the stiletto, and that was a video that I put out with just music and some words put up. And personally, I'm not a massive fan of those style of videos, because quite often I listen to a YouTube video rather than sit and watch it, because I'm doing something else, doing some modelling or cooking tea or whatever it is, and that allows you to glance over at something that sounds like it's interesting and you want to focus on, and then listen into the rest. So I prefer to have talk on it, really. So as everyone knows who watches the build videos, my build videos tend to be a combination of a little bit of music while I'm doing something, but mainly talking about what's going on, why I'm doing it. It's just my style, and that's how I like to do it. So the Christmas video was very much focused on airbrushing with enamel. So last year we did a sort of looking at enamels video. Enamels, what are they? Should you still be using them? Why are they in decline? And how do they compare to others? And just my thoughts on them. And a lot of people commented on that video to say, yeah, I always use enamels and I wish more people would. A lot of people commented to say that they'd like to see more about enamels. And even some people said, I've never used enamels. Which was a bit of a surprise to me, but then I grew up when enamels was the only option, and so I have a lot of experience with enamels, and I'm relatively new to acrylics. Probably only been using acrylics for 20 years. Wow, did I say relatively new? Doesn't time move on quickly? But yeah, the point of the videos was to show those of you that were interested, new to the hobby, never used enamels, or perhaps have used enamels but never airbrushed them, how I go about airbrushing it. And do you know what? It's not really that different to airbrushing ink or enamels or anything else that you can put through an airbrush. And the results are really good. And I think what people worry about is drying time, slowing down the model building process, which isn't really a factor. If you're really honest with yourself, it's not. People use it as an excuse, but it's not the reality. And cleaning the airbrush, and maybe I can't get it all out, and now it's dried on, and now I can't get it off, and I've ruined my airbrush. So I just wanted to show people how to do that, and it's certainly got a lot of people talking. And I know that one or two people have at least said that they're gonna give enamels a go. For me, the advantage of enamels is I tend to get a consistently better finish with enamels. The paints keep a lot better, so an inventory of enamel paints will stay there for 20 or 30 years, no problem at all. Inventory of acrylic paints, you need to keep it as tight as possible, because they go off so quickly, and some brands are worse than others. AK stuff, blimey, that doesn't half go off quick. But I don't buy AK stuff generally anymore anyway. So that was the idea. It was the first video of a two-part video. So in the first part we did construction, spraying with enamels, cleaning the airbrush, and focused on that. And on the second one we did weathering. So I thought that was quite important, because some people had made the comment to me that they didn't use enamels because they used enamels in their weathering process. So a lot of the pre-formulated weathering products are enamel based, and the idea being is you can put enamels on top of acrylics. Doesn't give you any issues, because they're two different products and they don't interact with each other. And you can then use lots of thinners and stuff to manipulate your weathering without affecting your base count. But as I showed in the video, all you need to do is make sure that you've got a clear coat down that is the correct type. So if you're going to be using enamels, put a clear coat down that's acrylic, and that's what we did. On top of our enamel, we put an acrylic top coat so we could carry on using enamels. We also used acrylics in there and weathering powders and the like, and just showed you that you can do everything you can do using acrylics. Now, like all paint systems, the problem is what colours can you get? And Humbrol have been reducing their enamel paints, but they're not the only enamel paint manufacturer. Tamiya make them. Certainly in the UK, they are very hard to come by. I've never actually seen a Tamiya enamel paint in real life. But I wouldn't even know where to get them in the UK. In fact, I'd love to try them. So it's something I should perhaps look for. But actually, the online stores I tend to use don't tend to stock them. And so I do need to find another brand to expand my enamel range at some point. But that being said, the two videos were really quite popular, and I enjoyed making them, and that's the main thing. Then we had a little product review video, so if you missed this, do go and check it out because it's a fairly new product, Mikuma's dry brushing paint. And at first I was a little bit sceptical, but I was intrigued enough to get a couple of jars and see what we think. And I tried it in anger for the first time on the Tiger, and a lot of the weathering that you see on top of the snow effect here has been done with that dry brushing paint. So the pros of the dry brushing paint, it's there, it's ready to use in the pot, and it's acrylic. So usually you dry brush with enamel or something like that, but this is acrylic, so it sits quite nicely with your acrylic paint systems. It's ready to go. It's pre-formulated, so yeah, nice and easy, and it works really, really well. Cons, there's a limited range. I've added another colour to mine, but when I looked at all the colours, most of them I thought probably never use those, so they need to put a lot more in the range. But also, how are you going to mix them? How are you going to get an exact colour? So they do a Panzer Grey, and that's all right if you're doing all over Panzer Grey, but what if that doesn't work with the colour that you're doing? So there are limitations to it. I think they're probably better for dioramas than actual vehicles and what have you. So probably better for landscapes and buildings possibly. But there's always going to be that limitation. It's the same with washers and anything else that's sold pre-formulated. You might not be able to get the exact colour you need. And so I don't think it's ever going to replace you using ordinary paints for dry brushing. Although it did have some advantages, the slow drying time and stuff, brush didn't clog. So I think it's a great product, but I think it's something that's a nice to have addition rather than this is going to revolutionise the hobby. And you could probably say that about 99% of aftermarket paint products other than paint, to be honest. Then we did a Wooden Wednesday, first impressions of the Golden Star, is it called? What a bad kit that is. That's probably the worst kit we've reviewed on the channel in 2 and a bit years. I had a look at it when we first got it, and I bought it on eBay, and it would usually it would retail for around about £100 brand new, that kit. And I got it for something like 20 or 25, and I feel I was possibly robbed because it's a dreadful kit. The sales were dreadful, the materials okay, but you know, but iffy in places. So it'd be yeah. My thought process as I went through that was, oh, I'd need to replace that. Oh, I'd need to replace that. So more than half the kit I wasn't happy to use. Might be going back on eBay, see if I can get me 25 quid back, possibly. It's unlikely I'm going to build that one, if I'm honest, because my stash is at a size now that it will probably outlive me, and that's not going to be in the model I go, oh, I want to build that. Even if there's just 2 left, that's going to be the one that I don't choose, whatever the other one is. So yeah, won't be building it. As a first impressions, really helpful to anyone who might be interested in buying it, that you go into it with your eyes open. Yeah, you could turn it into a decent model, but for me, you'd have to do a lot of work and a lot of replacing of parts to get it there. Then the next video was the Airfix range release. And I wasn't the first person by any means to get that out. It was to do with when I like to be amongst the first for things like that. But it is what it is. That came out on a day when I was particularly busy with work and family and what have you, and I couldn't get to it for a day or two. I saw that some channels were reviewing the hard copy catalogue. I prefer to do it online because we can see more information than you can in the catalogue. The catalogue's giving you a picture and a little bit of a talk, but what the web page is doing is telling you whether it's on pre-order, whether it's out now, when it's likely to be out. It will say due autumn, summer, spring. And in some cases you could see some of the options. The problem with the hard copy catalogue is it's correct at the time of printing, and it's telling you this is what's in the range in 2023, but it's not telling you when it's coming out. And when they print it, they might not know certain details like finalised paint schemes and what have you. So the website is real time. So I don't tend to buy the catalogue. I actually picked one up free last year from Telford. So the 2022 catalogue, I got a hard copy of that because I got it in November at the end of the year, and they were getting rid of what's left, no doubt. So I've got the information that I wanted, which is all in the back about their other products and how to use them and what they go with, which is a really handy reference guide. The rest of it I've not really looked at. So yeah, we went through the range. It's exactly what I was expecting. They had sort of dropped several fairly heavy, unsubtle hints during 2022 that they were focused on starter sets. I think if you like the quick builds, the bus is clearly a highlight. And in the terms of the starter sets, there's some nice stuff going out there. I mean, I'll be interested to see how they get on with that. I still don't see lots of youngsters coming into the hobby. That people that do are coming into the hobby because they have parents and grandparents that are in the hobby, and they get into it that way. Most people that are coming back into the hobby appear to be people who are coming back from a break. So they've either retired, or the kids have finally moved out, or for one way or another they've got free time back again, and then they're revisiting something they did when they were younger. How long that can carry on when youngsters don't start in the hobby to start with. So in 20 years time, when people have got kids that have grown up and left, will they be going back to computer games that they used to play all the time as a kid? I suspect that's the challenge for the model industry. Now, obviously, I'm going to plug the hobby as much as I can because I love it and I know how good it is for things like your mental health and what have you. But it's a big challenge that the industry has got, and Airfix are having a good stab at it. Whether it's enough, whether they're doing it right, only time will tell. Fingers crossed that they are. But yeah, some really good new kits in the range, particularly on the starter end. Obviously, you know which ones I've pre-subscribed to. I'm probably going to get the Bond book, although I've not pre-ordered it yet. I'm probably going to get it just for a bit of fun. But obviously the Fairy Gannet's the one that we're all interested in. That's the release of the year, isn't it? Right then, group build, which was the next video we actually put up. We said, right, buddy build announcement, and that's sort of, it's how it started off. Last year, in one of my then roundup videos, I mentioned, you know, looking for ideas of what we perhaps do next. And Robert Rim's Models just said in his comment, how about a buddy build? And I'd not really thought about it at that point before. And obviously, I got involved in one last year, and I see other people doing them. And I ummed and ahed about whether it would work. I had a lot on last year build-wise, and I couldn't really fit another one in. And actually, I ended up the year trying to clear the decks a little bit. So it'd been mulling around in my head all year about doing a buddy build. So I talked to Rob. He was up for it. It needed to be something that fitted in with the type of models that Rob tends to build, which is vehicles primarily. So, you know, trams and diggers and that sort of stuff. And I know he likes his mini art. But I also wanted to do something that was different, that perhaps hadn't been seen on other channels. So I follow quite a lot of car channels, interestingly, as I'm not especially a car builder. And so there's lots of car channels that do this all the time. So there's lots of cars out there. So didn't want to do cars. There was lots of sort of diorama themes, building tanks with a theme, and you know, straight from the box. There's loads of people do. We'll just do it straight from the box. I think they try and come up with something that they think is going to be easy, you know, not too time consuming, and fits in with the whole concept of doing a group build. So we had a thought, and one thing I hadn't seen that fitted in with Rob, and I quite fancied doing, having seen Jeff's coal wagon during the year, and one or two other releases that were sort of commercial vehicles, and we did the first impressions of the fire truck. And so I sort of got to that point where actually commercial vehicle, I'm not seeing anyone do a commercial vehicle build. That fits in nicely, so that's what we've settled on. So as a reminder, and I will put another separate reminder video out for those of people that don't do the catch-up. On the 1st of March, Rob and I will be launching a buddy build, a group build if you prefer, and everyone is welcome to join in if you've got a channel or not, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But the idea is that from the 1st of March for 2 months until the end of April, you build a commercial vehicle. So that can be anything that is a commercial vehicle or a vehicle being used for commercial purposes. So you could take the S100 Hanomag, German military vehicle, large tractor that was used for pulling around V2 rockets and dragging tanks about and that sort of stuff. That was used quite extensively as a commercial vehicle in post-war Germany. So as long as you paint it in a non-military way, whether it's got logos on or not, but present it as a commercial vehicle, sorry. The stagecoach, Bob, that's fine. You could do a car as long as it's something like, I don't know, a vet or something like that. So that's acceptable. It's still a vehicle in commercial use. Obviously, delivery vans, trucks. I'm going to be doing this, the German light fire truck. So it's between two. I've settled on that one. It's red. What could go wrong? So I'm going to be building that on the group build for commercial vehicles. So obviously, you know, it doesn't have logos and stuff on, but it's clearly a commercial vehicle. So that's where I am. I have been asked some questions about it. That's what we're going to do. our plan to launch it with a live stream. I said we were going to talk live streams. So on the 1st of March, that evening, I will do a live stream. I've yet to work out how to do this, but if I can work it out, then I'd very much like to have Rob on the live stream with me, and you'll be able to see me open the box and open the open it up, get the instructions going, and start work live, so you know that we didn't cheat and pre-record it and all that sort of stuff that some people do and think they're being clever. You know, it's just for fun. Get over yourself. We'll start on the 1st of March and aim to have it finished at the end of April, and if it's not, it's not, but at least you had some fun and built along. At the end of April, what I'll be doing is asking people to send in images of what they've built. So if you don't have a YouTube channel, that's fine. You can still get involved, because when you've finished it, you're going to be able to then send me some photographs of your work. And just like we did at the end of the year with the subscriber showcase, we'll put all that together, put some music on and show off everyone's work. And that's the commercial build group build. If it's successful and it goes really well and people are interested and people enjoy it, then we'll do it again. And if it's a flop, possibly we won't. But one way or another, I'm looking forward to the 1st of March and having a break. I won't be dropping everything to do it. That's why we've given us 2 months. So I'll still be continuing with my main build, and we'll talk about that. So I think my next video then was the review of those resin accessories for the K2 ambulance, or really any ambulance, to be honest. It's pillows, blankets and some first aid bags, kit bags. Very nice little product. Now I've also got some resin wheels for the K2 ambulance as well. Why? Well, because I plan to do an ice cold in Alex diorama. Now I've mentioned this a couple of times, and I intended last year to do a sort of a video on my thoughts on it, which we, at the time of recording this, we are about to record. You can see just over there, there is a box with fragile tape on, and on the top of it, there is a diorama with an African building. Well, that will be my diorama, which I started ages ago when Accurate Armour brought out their K2 ambulance. Now, currently, you can get the Accurate Armour K2 ambulance, and I'll tell you from the 3 K2 ambulances you can buy, Airfix, Gecko and Accurate Armour. Accurate Armour is head and shoulders the best kit. No doubt about it. The panelling on the back of the vehicle is correct, unlike the other 2. You've got nice photo etch for things like the air vents, the grille, and it's all the correct shape, unlike the Gecko one. So it's just generally a nicer model, but it's also 100 quid. So it's not in everyone's budget. So it's a fully resin and photo etch model. I do happen to have it, so I'm not just talking from images. And in the Ice Cold in Alex video, you will see it part built, which is where it currently is. So yeah, the Ice Cold in Alex diorama, thoughts on the diorama video will be coming out though. A lot of people, when the K2 ambulance came out, and a lot of people are talking about doing an Ice Cold in Alex video, or diorama I should say. There was a lot of know-alls telling people what they should do. And it all depends on how you want to approach your diorama, and we will talk about that. And of course, the one thing that everyone wants to talk about when it comes to an Ice Cold in Alex diorama is figures. So I have figures, we'll talk about that. And again, it's all about how you want to do your diorama and what scene you're doing and so on. But yeah, look out for that. That is getting recorded after this, and then that should be out probably at some point in February, maybe early March, because I've actually got quite a busy schedule already filled up in the pipeline. So I think following that was the first impressions of the Mikuma, wasn't it? That's right. Had to think for a sec. Now, is it a heavy cruiser or is it a light cruiser? So I made the comment that Wikipedia had talked about it being a heavy cruiser. and Tamiya described it as a light cruiser, and I'd considered it a light cruiser. And then my good friend Stephen Payne got in touch with me after the video gone out and said, actually it's both. It's to do with the Japanese Navy reclassifying their ships when it pulled out of the Washington Naval Treaty. And when he said that, I thought, oh yeah, that's right. I sort of knew it, but forget a lot of things now. I'm getting a bit older. So whichever way you want to call it, you're correct. But it's a nice model. It's, you know, it's one of the newer Tamiya ship kits, and as such, it's a nice model. We know it'll go together without much effort. It lacks a little bit of detail in places, and it's got an overly complex build in places, but largely Tamiya build their ships in the way I build their ships, and it all makes sense to me. And you'll come up with something that's really quite nice with a bit of additions. So I still need to get an upgrade set for that. I never heard from White Ensign Models. They never replied to me about my Warspite gallery. So that's disappointing. I was going to order one of their upgrade sets so that he could send me a part if he had one. But he hasn't responded. So at this moment in time, I haven't ordered the photo etch for it. So we'll see what happens. But I think that definitely needs some form of upgrade set before you tackle it. So probably the White Ensign. I'm not even sure that there is another one about, to be honest. But yeah, nice kit all in all. So then, from your point of view, we popped back onto the Tiger build. So actually, in January, I've been pretty much solely focused on the Tiger build. As those of you who've watched the Tiger build know, I had some issues with the tracks. And we've got 3D printed tracks on one side and plastic individual link tracks on the other. And actually the 3D printed tracks, if I'd got two sets that would been properly molded so they actually would connect together, they are definitely the better option, as once you've put them all together, they're not difficult to get on. They're a little bit fragile. I had one or two of the guide horns snap off installing them. But the plastic ones, because the guide horns are a separate part that glues on, that holds it all together, there's no way you can glue the individual links together around the wheels. It just doesn't work. So that, and it doesn't really work as flexible tracks. When you glue them in, they either glue together and then don't move, or they fall apart and drop off because there's not enough glue on them. So yeah, they don't particularly work. So I've had to, I've joined them all together around the wheels, and for most of the time, with the exception of the idler wheel and the drive sprocket, you just don't see the guide horns anyway, so I haven't used them. So keeping the track straight becomes a little bit problematic, but anyway, we got there in the end. But yeah, that's you've started seeing the builds, and obviously the builds will continue for you until this is done, and then we'll flop on to the next build, and we'll come back and talk about that when we talk about what's coming up. So yeah, the Tiger build was back. We started with 13 at this start of the year. So yeah, and then we did an introducing basics. So this is a new video format for me. So previously we've done looking at tools, a bit more recently looking at products, and we've always had sort of quick tips. So if I'm building something, I'm doing something that I've not done before or not shown before, I sometimes will film it as a quick tip within my build, and that's pretty much what we did with the introducing basics. I took the section on spraying enamels and out of my Christmas build, and put that in a standalone video. So if you didn't watch the Christmas build, there's still a separate video there on how to airbrush and clean your airbrush around enamels. And what you've got to remember is that you might have seen it before, but once the video has been released, it becomes a standalone video. So I release videos and it's a continuation of the channel. So I think of the channel as a magazine. So I see each video as an article on something, and it's a continuation of previous articles. But for many viewers, it's a standalone video they come across when they're searching for something on YouTube, and that's how your subscriber count tends to come together. It's people discovering a video and then liking it and deciding that they want to see more that comes out of that channel. So you have to remember that they're also standalone videos. So that's why I do that. You might well have come across it before, but we've made it a standalone video for someone who's looking specifically for how do I airbrush with enamels and then clean my airbrush. Job done. So that's why we did that, and that we're getting to the end of January already. That then got us the first impressions on the Mini Art armoured car. Wow, what a lovely kit that is, and the splinter pattern camouflage, I think it looks stunning. So a lot of people like that. It was my second most popular first impressions video of the month. No, I take that back. It was the third. The Tamiya ship was the second. So other people have reviewed them before, but there's a number of different guises, and I'm not sure that I'd seen a 1918 pattern, but I'm sure there's some out there. So I went through it. Thought as I went through it, this is going to be a really nice kit. It's a little bit more involved because it's got full interior. So it's a bit like building a wingnut wing. If wingnut wings made trucks, that's what you'd get. So yeah, really, really nice kit, and I might have to move that up the pattern. Maybe we'll do an armoured car group build at some point just to justify me building it, but then I've got several armoured cars. I've got a really lovely Accurate Armour Humber I could build, but anyway, that's another story. So yeah, we did that and it was popular, and then I had a weekend where I didn't do much modelling because I went to Bolton. So I live in Leyland in Lancashire, and I'm only 20 minutes in the car from Bolton Wanderers Football Club. Not that I really follow football, but that is where Bolton holds its show, and they haven't had one for 2 years, I think it is, due to the pandemic. They were really lucky because they do it in January. They'd run one just before the lockdowns started happening. But then last year they didn't do one, I don't think, or maybe they did and I missed it, but I don't think they did. So I think this year was the first one, and it was called Bolton Strikes Back, and that's where we got the Star Wars theme from it. And it's a great show, and I can't say it's a great little show because it's not really a little show. It's on 2 levels, and the show is really quite a busy show. You could see them all queuing up, though that was a couple of minutes before the opening at 10 AM. Only ever runs for 1 day, but for me, it's the second. I think it's probably the second largest show in the UK. It's a really nice show. It's busy. It's also well thought out. So you've got the rows of all the different stand tables, in the middle, where you've got the different groups showing, and at the end of most of those, you've got a little row of seats. So Paula had come with me, and she was able to sit down, and I'd go up the row, then down the next side, and she could move up to the next row of seats. So some guy walked past her, then stopped and turned and said to her, "That's how I feel when I'm in a shoe shop." And then walked off. So yeah, actually she quite enjoyed the show as well. She was really there to rein me in on my spending, because if I go along alone, I'd end up spending a lot more than I did, and I did buy one or two things. And you'll see them all coming up on the channel during February and March. I only bought one model kit though, but it had been something I'd been looking for a few weeks. So I revisited the Urge. I actually saw it while we were walking through the displays. Someone had brought one in, and it's the old Flak 88 from Tamiya, which I built as a kid and I wanted to revisit. So yeah, really interesting. Managed to get the model a bit cheaper than I ordinarily could have done. Saw some great models, did some great videoing, saw another YouTuber. Yeah, it was a great time all in all. A really good show. So I'm recording this, it's the 28th of January as I record this. So there's always that little bit where you've got a couple of videos coming out after you've recorded the catch up, and so there's a couple of videos that I don't know how well they're going to do, but I can talk about them now because I know you'll have watched them by the time this comes out. Okay, so the next video to come out after Bolton was Tiger 14, and that has come together quite nicely. I'm happy with it. Then after the Tiger, we've got on the 30th, we've got how to make a wet palette. So I've seen a number of videos on around about making wet palettes. There was a little flurry of them at some point last year. The main thing is wet palettes, they're not necessarily that expensive to buy, in fairness, but continually buying the papers when you've used them, that's what becomes expensive. So you could buy a wet palette rather than make one, and then use parchment as a refill for the cover. Probably, I've never actually had a commercially made wet palette, so I don't know what the sponge and construction is, the other layers are like, and whether it would work. But certainly my wet palette is very cheap to make. It's a fraction of the cost of a bought one, and you get a roll of that non-siliconed baking parchment, and that's it. You're done for life. You'll probably never use all of that. Even if you're a figure painter, it'll last you a very long time. So yeah, I don't use wet palettes a lot. I've got a need for a wet palette when I go into my big diorama, which we'll talk about in a minute, and then I've got one or two projects coming up over the next couple of years that's got a lot of figure painting involved, and I want to do some figure painting as well. All of that we'll talk about in a minute. So I am going to be needing a wet palette more and more. I went and dug mine out, gave it a wash and a clean up, and then I got a new sponge, and it seemed like a good time to do a wet palette how to make video. And of course, we've used a little bit of packing foam and made it a little bit user-friendly. With just helps if you've got some tools there, because you're not stretching to different places. It's all, you're focused very much when you're painting figures on what's going on there and what's going on your palette, and it just keeps it all together. So that's why I call it the ultimate wet palette, because I think it is. Now, strictly speaking, this wasn't January because it was yesterday, but then we've had that ambulance, the first impressions video, and the reason I bought that ambulance was coming out of Telford. It was my star build from Telford, and when I call it a star build, it's the one I enjoyed the most for whatever reason. Doesn't necessarily mean it was the best model there. I mean, what is best anyway? Everything's relative, isn't it? So I really enjoy this little diorama of this ambulance with some figures next to it, looking exhausted or possibly even dead. And yeah, it was just really nice. And I wasn't sure what the kit was. Turns out it's an ICM kit that Revell have also released. And so there's basically three versions of the kit. There's the original release of just the ambulance. Then there's a second ICM release with some figures, which is the one I reviewed. And then there's a third release by Revell without the figures again, with less interesting paint schemes, and no doubt we'll have terrible Revell decals. So there's different options, the Revell one being the cheaper one to buy in fairness, but I like the idea of getting the figures and having a little diorama in a box. So that's the one we reviewed, and a lovely little kit it is as well, and had quite a bit of detail. Sometimes ICM kits, you know, they have the back doors closed, so there's no interior detail. The fire truck I'm about to build, it is case in point. It could definitely have had more stuff in some of the lockers than it does. But that wasn't the case with the ambulance. There's plenty to go out there, and you could do a little bit of scratch building and open up some of the little side doors, put a box on, and put some little details inside. So there was options with it. So all in all, a nice little kit. That kicked off February. It's the 2nd of February today. Tomorrow. So let's talk briefly about what's coming up in February. Well, tomorrow you've got episode 15 of the Tiger build, and in that you'll be seeing us, I think, putting the figures on, putting on some of the other details, the drums and the tools and bits and pieces like that. You'll be seeing that going together. I can't remember what else is in there, but let's just talk about this as we've got to that point. At the time of recording this, so like I say, this is the 28th of January today. What have we got left to do to finish the Tiger build? We've got to finish painting and weathering the tracks, which are now on. We've got to add the tools, and we've got 1 or 2 finishing touches to do on the tank. The aerial, painting in some of the damage on the damaged bin. Then the tank's pretty much done. We've got some leaves to put around here, so want to show it with some dead leaves knocking about. Then we're going to add some Tamiya snow, not used it before, so we'll see how that goes. So we've got some snow to add onto the diorama, and then we've got to do some wet weathering. So if we've got snow, we've got a lot of dampness and moisture around, so we're going to have melting snow and that sort of stuff. So and also on the tank I'll be wanting to do some wet weathering as well. So various different glosses and products to do that. So probably sounds like there's more to do than there really is, hopefully. Putting the snow on should be fairly quick, putting the leaves on should be fairly quick. I've still got 1 or 2 other bits and pieces to put on here, but not much. A box and that might actually be it. So we're nearly done with that. And when we finish with that, we're jumping straight back on to the Queen Mary 2, and that will be my main focus. But the Queen Mary 2 is going to be a build that's probably not going to come back in the format that you last saw it, because of how we're building. So I don't think I can build for a week and have enough video content for the Saturday. So what we're going to be doing is it'll be the main build at the weekend, and during the week we'll do something else, and that will probably be what you see sort of intermittently. You'll have a big video on the Queen Mary 2, and in between you'll see progress on the Wingnut Wings Gotha. Yep, we will be starting that. So I'll have two builds going on. The Wingnut Wings Gotha is very different in terms of build from the Queen Mary 2. Queen Mary 2, we're at that point, a lot of photo etch, still got some scratch building to do, so a lot of construction work as we go down the upper deck and then drop down the back decks. At the stern there, and then we'll have some final finishes to make it presentable, varnishing and so on and so forth. The Gotha is going to be very hand painting, labour intensive. Got lots and lots of wood effect painting to do. I've also got wood effect decals, but we won't be using those in the interior in the cockpit. We'll be using those on things like the big floats that it sits on. So lots of different techniques, but there's a lot of panels that need painting. So the wet panel palette will be very handy for that, because we'll be doing a lot of oil painting and working with oils to get the wood effects, because almost the whole interior of that cabin is wood, and there's a sort of a dark wood and a light wood. So there's a lot, it's clean up individual parts and lots of different colours going on each one, and then constructing it together. So a very different build for the Gotha, at least initially when we're building up the cockpit and the main fuselage structure. Then it becomes putting it together, lots of large areas of spray painting the huge wings there. We've got some more complex building to do around the engines, and then we're on the rigging. So although it's a big aircraft, it's not hugely involved in many ways, less involved than some other kits. And in fact, when you go through the instructions of the Wingnut Wings Gotha, it's 9 steps. 9 steps for the full build. Airfix don't even build a cockpit in 9 steps anymore. So what else is coming up in February? Well, we've got a review of this year's Airfix Club kit, which is completely unique to the Airfix Club. The only way you can buy it is by joining the Airfix Club. I've no doubt that it'll get released at some point to the wider public, but not in 2023. If you want to build that particular kit, you have to join the Airfix Club. Which, you know, if you're not interested in joining the Airfix Club, you might not want to do. But if you want that kit, it makes it a little bit more expensive if you hadn't intended to join the Airfix Club. But we'll talk about that in the video. So it'll be, here's the Airfix Club pack. Now let's do a first impressions on the kit. I'm not going to go to town on the club. I did it last year. Fundamentally, it's the same. The Airfix Club is the same deal as last year, and the kit is the thing that's interesting because it's a proper special edition. So we've got that coming up. We'll have more Tiger, which we've talked about. I build an oil brusher rack that I know you'll have seen. You can just about see it there. We build that and talk about that. I've got another mini art kit, very, very different though. It's not an aircraft. It's not figures. It's not a vehicle in the true sense of the word. It's not a truck or a tank, or it's not diorama bits like cement mixers and road signs and things, but I'll leave you guessing as to what it actually is. Then we've got a power tool review, particularly of interest for those of you that do wood modelling, although I have used it for plastic modelling. But if you do dioramas a lot, it's also quite handy for that. Oh, and then we've got our first impressions that I haven't recorded yet, but I'm really looking forward to. Yep, this bad boy, the Tamiya Classic KG5 kit. Now, if you've never seen this kit, it's awesome. It's an old kit now, and it is showing its age, but we'll go through all that in the first impressions. But I also have the Pontos upgrade set for this. So this is probably going to end up being a two-parter, part 1 and then a part 2 focused on some aftermarket. So I think the Pontos set will take this back to 1941 if you want, which is what I want to do when I build this. The kit, as Tanya presented, it's in its 1945 setup, so perhaps more interesting to the Japanese market. But so you can't just build this and have a Bismarck related ship. You've got to make some changes and bits and pieces to it to get it out. Obviously, most of it's right. It's just some little bits. You've got extra gun tubs and bits and pieces that were added later in its life. This will be an utter labour of love for me when I build this, because in 1941, my great uncle, my grandfather's middle brother, was the meteorological rating on the King George V when they went into battle with the Bismarck. And as many of you know, if you saw my build of HMS Anthony 18 months or so ago, there's a lovely story that he tells around why he wanted to engage the Bismarck, and we might revisit that for a wider audience perhaps, but this will be an absolute labour of love for me. I want to do it in the 1941, guys. It's an absolutely beautiful ship, it's iconic, and we've got a Pontos set, so I expect that there'll be a little bit of interest in this as a first impressions. Then I suspect in terms of builds, by the back end of February, you'll start seeing the Queen Mary 2 again. I certainly hope to get another one out during February. I've got a Tamiya hand tool review coming along. I've never seen this particular tool reviewed, strangely. Yeah, we've got that coming along. Aircraft wise, we've got a little 172 scale Airfix kit. I'm going to say off the top of my head, I've already recorded it, but I can't remember which one it was. So we've got that. That'll be the back end of the month. So yeah, and February's a short month, but it's going to be action packed. We'll also have a video going out to remind everyone about the group build that we're doing, and then on the 1st of March, which is, I'm just going to look at my calendar, a Wednesday, we will have the live stream to kick off the group build. So that's the plan. If I can sort out how you bring two people together, because I don't know how you do that, and I don't have streaming software or anything like that, then hopefully I can get my friend Rob on screen as well. If I can't, then I know Rob will be there, and we'll talk through what we're doing and start building. And I might get Daisy involved if I feel I need someone to be monitoring the chat for me. So don't know how that's going to shape up, but lots coming. So hopefully we'll finish this during February, and you'll start seeing some Queen Mary 2 come back, and you'll also see some update videos on. I don't know how much of this we're going to see, but most likely we'll get at least an update video. You might even get a full video. Although I suspect the full build video is probably March. I think right at the back end of February is when we'll see Queen Mary 2 come out, and then we'll have a bit of gopher into the mix, and that will be what you'll see from me in terms of builds other than the group build. So the Wingnut Wings build will get off to a sort of a slow start, because we've got a lot of parts to remove and clean up at the start, and then we've got a fairly slow painting process, because we're painting largely with oils in the cockpit. So how that's going to come together, I have no idea at the moment, and we'll be focusing on getting the truck done now. If I can get the truck done in less than 2 months, that will then speed up the Wingnut Wings build, but the primary build will be getting the Queen Mary 2 done, and I've got things like the funnel and some of the big structures on the top to do, so hopefully I can move that along fairly quickly. Perhaps going to change up my normal process of building from front to back and then down, and do all the large structures and get some content recorded. Could do with doing that. So there's quite a few things coming along in February. Feels like February's a transition month from clearing the decks that we started doing last year to getting back into new things. So what else is going to be coming in 2023 that I know of? Well, I guess the other big thing that I want to do is a Lancaster build. It's the 80th anniversary of the Dam Busters. I've got a Dam Busters Lancaster. There's lots of other channels I know that are sort of talking about it, and you get the feel that there's going to be quite a few Lancasters put out this year. So yeah, at this stage, as I'm recording this, I'm in the very early stages of talking about a multi-channel collaboration, and I don't know what's going to come of it, if anything, at this stage. But there's at this moment in time, there's four channels that are talking about pulling stuff together in the form of live streams, group builds, and that sort of stuff. And it all depends on how much time it takes up. I don't want it to detract from what I'm doing. So we'll see how that works out. So there might be a collaboration coming along. There might not. I just don't know. At this stage, I'm just playing things cautiously. Things have got to be very much on my terms to work, because I've done this before. I used to make models for a part work company so that they could show people buying their models how to build them. And it completely ruined the hobby for me, because I was working to deadlines with a company that didn't understand that me working from free wasn't the main thing that I did. So yeah, I don't want to get back into that trap again, because it wasn't a very good time. So everything that I do now with my hobby has to be on my terms. I enjoy doing the channel. I enjoy interacting with you guys. I love the Saturdays when we have the live stuff. I'm looking forward to doing a live stream and getting more of you chatting. I'm looking forward to the new group build with my good friend Rob. Our channels get along really well, and I'm sure it's the start of a collaboration. There's a couple of other channels I'd like to do more with, and that's why we're sort of doing this collaboration. So I've got a couple of channels that have been long-standing friends now of model kit stuff, and it'd be nice to do a little bit more with them. But I'm enjoying what I'm doing. That's the main thing, and I'm hoping that's coming out on the videos. The diorama is going really well, which leads me into the other thing that's going to happen in 2023 that I nearly forgot about: another diorama. I've been planning it since I was 50, so we're 3 years into that. But I want to build a diorama of a German street, and on that German street is going to be a FAMO tank transporter. So you know what kit that is. That's the Tamiya kit. We have done a first impressions with it, and I've got the ABA update sets for it, which are really involved. Resin parts and a lot of etch, really involved. So I want to do that, and there's going to be cars in there. We've already built one. We built one last year for the small scale car group build, and that'll be in there. Got loads of figures to put in there. But I'm playing with the idea of having it on 2 levels. So there's a lower street and an upper street. So you quite often see dioramas that are done like that in some way, and having a tram on the lowest. So you'd have German tram, maybe on a bit of an incline coming out of a tunnel or something like that. And then that street winds up and meets with the higher street, where you've got the famo, and that's taken from a photograph. I've got a period one, and it's going to be set sort of September, October 1939. So largely Germany's still going around its everyday business. There's no destroyed buildings or anything like that. And then there's a Polish tankette on the tank transporter. So that's sort of the plan. That's what I'm planning to do. And at some point, probably towards the back end of 2023, we're going to start planning that diorama. It's a slow burn. It's a project that'll probably take me 2 or 3 years, and we'll dip in and out of. We'll build a building and put it on, and then I'll go and do something else. So we'll slowly build it. I've got a base for it, which is a floating shelf. That's going to be the base for it. But we will start that towards the back end of this year, planning it out, doing some of the basics, the sculpting of it to get the roads and pavements done. It's a massive job, but something that I'm really looking forward to doing and been thinking about now for, well, 2 and a bit years. So that's definitely coming in 2023. I'd like to do a warship. I wanted to do a German ship last year, never got to it. So I'm thinking we'll maybe do something, perhaps not the Prince Eugen, because that's a massively involved build. We could do the 1200 Mikasa, which is a shelf queen. It's a beautiful model. Got a lot of upgrades for it. It's a bit less than halfway through the build, but I've got photograph imagery of the whole build up to now, so we can launch that and then finish the build. So that's a good possibility for this year as well. Those are my known knowns. What I don't know is my unknowns. So there's lots coming in 2023. I don't know how it's going to shape up, but I do know I've got a busy February, and I'm looking forward to starting that gopher. Okay, well, I think that's it for this catch up. I've probably talked long enough. So thank you very much for looking in. Thank you for subscribing. A big thank you to all of you.